So, what do you think about cyber charters?
Well, I'm not, and I never will be an advocate for education being a profitable aspect of society. I don't know if that's cliche or not, but I feel like when you're using the word cyber, what you're doing is creating an additional opportunity for learners, and by making it a charter where you're going to be paying people probably more than they should be getting paid, it's kind of like it's a moral dilemma. Yes, it's a great opportunity for those that need it, but then it's also some greed involved. So I'm not into it. I'm not into the charter. We'll say that.
Can you speak to me a bit about this NEF grant and the reason why you've chosen that path?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm hoping that Wendy responded somewhat similar. The reason that we wanted the NEF, the National Education Foundation, is because it is grant funded by people who care. Okay, Dr. Catan cares about cyber learning, and you could tell it reflects in his effort, and his conversation, his communication. Tony Beatrice cares. I mean, he made a point where he said, I could be an academic that sits and does nothing. I'm tenured, I'm good. But he's opted to do this instead. So what you see is two individuals that care. And that, I believe, reflects in the fact that Dr. Catan just didn't pick a vendor. He made people compete. And he's picked the best vendors that you could possibly think of in Pearson and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There could be some conspiracy when you get into those larger level education people, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, NEF not only provides a large amount of courses and whatnot, but they come and they take over your school, and they incorporate all these things like the learning sciences that are kind of trending and or established, possibly dependable, reliable, we'll say. They incorporate that into it school-wide. So it's not just like taking a sector of your school and focusing on them, which often gets negative feedback from community and other students for that matter. So they take over your school basically, and everybody's now involved in getting better. And then finally, it's the idea that they recognize that you need to take ownership when you're doing something new. And NEF allows, and I don't know how they do this, it's extremely brilliant, they allow customization of their courses. So we could have, and what we've opted to do is have our department heads each heed a particular course and administer it. What they'll be able to do is take ownership of that course, add their content, rearrange things, and teach it how they want. So you have ownership at the teacher level, and then you have opportunity at the student level. And I almost want to say equal opportunity, which is just what makes it just terrific. And it separates it from everyone else who does boilerplate stuff. I mean, there's vendors out there who's just rubber stamping content and giving it to you, that district, this district. And we just weren't about that. We wanted to make sure it was quality and sustainable.
So what was the motivating factor for this push, for this move?
Well, the final piece was, there was two options that they provided us. One was called, it was a funding source where you could find a third-party entity and they could just give you a chunk of money and help you out. The other was adopt a school. We come from a community that's thriving at times, drug-ridden at times, always in the paper. We have some concerns with the local editor who sometimes likes to put our town in a negative light. What really was the thing that closed this down and really motivated Wendy and I to pursue it was the fact that the Adopt a School brings in the community. Mm-hmm. And what they do is local businesses can adopt, it's called Adopt a School, but it's more or less adopt a student. So if you have an employee that you want to get trained, they can get trained, get a certificate from the SUNY College up there in New York, and then that student gets a degree. So it's kind of a win-win, whereas our community begins to take stakehold in the education. They get a kickback of having more certified and trained employees, and then students get the education that they've chosen. I mean, the fact that it's a choice means they're probably more intrinsically motivated. So that was the thing of bringing just the whole community, school, everything together. Really made it just, this is what we're going to do and we're going to push for it.
Great, so that leads into my next question. So what is the role of blended learning or district level cyber charters in your view?
The blended learning means, again, and I'm going to keep saying opportunity, it probably seems, I don't know if it seems cliche or not, but basically, we have all these criterion that you have to meet in your core level courses, but then you also have your interests and things that you might want to pursue at a secondary level. So oftentimes, because we're small, I don't know if we're small, we're above average, but we're not small, we're not huge, you're going to get this scheduling conflict. So a student that might want to take, you know, calculus instead of Spanish 4 has to take calculus because it helps with collegiate. So what this does in a blended sense is allows the students to kind of, it gives them more opportunity. They can take their core, they can do what they have to for college, but then they can also entertain their interests by taking an online course versus their standard brick and mortar in the classroom. And also, I think blended learning, I don't have any citations here to back any of this up, but I think blended learning, it motivates the learner as well, you know, because there's a whole self-regulation aspect to a blended learning model that you need to become a little bit more reliable to yourself. And I think students don't realize it because it's, again, it's an opportunity, it's something different, but intrinsically they're becoming more motivated and more responsible for their learning.
So you think there are any benefits of the cyber charter movement in terms of competition coming from them and forcing you to react in this way?
I think, I mean, I'm a what do they call it, a scholar athlete, what have you. I played football in college and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So when I hear competition, I always think it's good. I think competition it makes me better, it makes that person better, it makes products better. Mm-hmm. I want to say yes, I want to think that it's going to make better, but at the same time, if in fact that things become better on their end, it means more money, it means it's going to become more expensive. Mm-hmm. So it's going to become exclusive. One would think that, I look at certain schools around here, like we have a very free-spirited elementary school, you know, kids kind of just go in at their own pace. When they're ready, they move on. $8,000 a year on top of the district taxes you're already paying. So I don't think that's a competitive sense, but I think competition in the sense of how cyber charters are currently running is going to make it more expensive versus better.
What do you think the community's reaction is going to be to this new initiative that you and your school board members have decided to take on?
If they're educated correctly, I think it could be unbelievable. I think the impact of trying to actually get an alignment between the community, the businesses, and the school is great, and I hope that's the case. But that means they'd have to make an effort to become educated. And we're going to only give out as much information as we can, so whether or not they opt to learn about it and understand it, it's on them. Well, not everybody's going to be happy, but I think, you know, with Wendy and I opting to do the community route, it's definitely going to have a better impact than if we said we're going to our own cyber charter.
Right.
Or cyber school, I should say.
So what is your plan to educate the public, your community, on this initiative?
Well, we're actually going to be a little shady with it, to be honest with you. I got a friend who owns a gym, and he's got a combative relationship, per se, with a local writer, journalist, we'll say. Mm-hmm. So we've opted to, once we make a connection, we've got, you know how it is, we got a bunch of got a bunch of fish hooks out there just waiting for somebody to bite. So once we get that one to bite, we're going to have him send out an email and have the local paper, which it incorporates 7 sending school districts. It's going to write up a story on NEF and how we're going to go about it. So that's hopefully going to plant the seed to which we can only hope people start showing up at board meetings, asking questions and all that stuff.
Okay. So as we're developing this teaching and learning online minor, what would you like to see in teachers that are trained at TLO?
I taught a class 2 summers ago, multimedia, so Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, Captivate, you're familiar with all these softwares, online.
Yeah.
And it is unbelievably difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surprised that I wasn't trained. There was no professional development there here. My boss came and said, "Can you teach a class for us?" I said, "Sure." Thinking in my head, it's not that bad. How hard could it be? And it was synchronous. So, I mean, everybody had to log in, and it was like Adobe Connect. We use Saba, Sentra. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was completely, utterly unprepared. One question threw off everything. Because I don't know how you teach in a classroom instruction, but my goal was to be 3 hours smarter than those kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And you figure you got a 3-hour class, you need to be 3 hours smarter than them. You can't do that online. Like, you need to be prepared exponentially. I mean, I think that the requirement of training, professional development for teaching online is what's missing, and I think it's why certain things might not be coming across as good, bad, or what have you. I think it's brilliant. I didn't know we were doing that.
So with this bad e-learning experiences that you've had, how do you compare that to this new infrastructure that you're going to bring into your school district?
I've never been a fan of, and this is from the moment that I started my PhD, I've never been a fan of technology replacing any type of teacher, facilitator, instructor, whatever label you want to put. Mm-hmm. Our plan is to, I guess our plan would kind of mimic more of a flipped classroom, whereas they're going to be assigned, they're going to learn, but then each week they're going to have an opportunity to sit with an instructor. Right. Not sit with, but have access to, either like this in a some sort of video conferencing and some sort of like online chat room, what have you, but they're always going to have that kind of defrag session, reflection opportunity, etc. So that's the difference that with bad e-learning, if it's not in simple terms, simple terminology, good direction, proper colors, good placement, alignment, all that stuff, you don't have that opportunity for self-reflection and guidance from an expert. Right. I mean, the fact that NEF is providing customizable, all these things, I think is what's going to make it more sustainable and effective, I hope.
So along the same lines, what would you like to see when hiring someone for this new virtual learning environment that you're going to bring to your school district?
I think, and why, like, it's going to be Wendy. Wendy is going to be kind of spearheading the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And why I like her mindset is because she kind of feels along the same way, is that teachers are unbelievably important. And, I just, when communicating, and there's probably going to be more, I mean, my hope is that we become bigger and that it's not just trying to encumber students that are wanting to do cyber school. My hope is that that cyber option is embedded within the actual school day. And, the blended is definitely just, as long as somebody has a blended belief in how education should be, they'll be okay, in my eyes.